What up, y'all? Big Dave here, still big, black, and handsome. Happy Monday to you. CHGO Bulls podcast, y'all. Coming up, we're going to talk about the NBA Finals games 1 and 2 and basking my greatness. And also, we're going to talk about this Bleacher Report article and the top 3 priorities of the Chicago Bulls. And since it's Monday, Katie's going to smack you? What up, y'all? Peace and love to all of you all. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, dogs, cats, babies, and whoever else has a pair of eyes or ears. Thank y'all for tuning in and looking at, basking in all this greatness that you see before you, which is the CHGO Bulls podcast. I am Big Dave.
Bow.
That is Will the Go Gottlieb. On production is Katie Duffy. Happy Monday to you all. Hello, sir. How was your weekend?
It was good.
It was good?
I have some apologizing to do.
Do you now? Well, first, before you do it, just shout out to everybody who is up in the chat right now. Shout out to Ivan. Hello, sir. Shout out to Black Rain. I really like your name. Shout out to Colin. What up? What up? I know Julia will be here later. Make sure you're hitting the like button also. Please hit the like button. Do it for Katie. It is a Monday. We gotta get the best Monday possible for all of yourselves, and don't have her come after you for not hitting the like button. I promise you. Also, I'm sure there'll be a poll in the chat. Make sure you vote on that as well. Go.
Back to my apology.
Yes, sir.
My apology to her. No, I said Thunder in 4, and boy was I wrong in dramatic fashion in game 1. I was proven quickly wrong. That was wild. I mean, they led for less than 1 second of that game, and it just happened to be the most important 0.3 seconds of the game.
It was. Series is now tied at 1. Game 1 went to the Pacers, as Will just mentioned, 111 to 110. Game 2 went to OKC, 123 to 107. Just to deal with game 1, as you just stated, yeah, like Tyrese Halliburton with the game winner with about 0.3 seconds left on the clock. They did not lead that entire game pretty much up until that point.
Literally, that was the
literally up until that point. It was an amazing game to watch. Watching it the whole time, Will, I never felt like OKC stepped on their neck. And one thing about the Pacers is you have to step on their neck.
If you give them any opening, they're going to take it.
Oh, yeah, man. And they're gonna take it from you. And you can look at just all their playoff victories that they've had when teams really thought the game was over and they came back and they won. Cleveland had a game like that. The Knicks had a game for sure like that. And now you see one here in OKC. They're just incredible, man. And they had, Milwaukee. How can I fit the Gary Trent Jr. game?
Yeah.
When he just went crazy and then they still came back and won. No, bro, they were special, man. They were really special.
Yeah, and then, I mean, I don't know how much you want to spend on each of these single games, but it just was so fascinating to then watch that contrasted to how they played in game 2, which, like, I don't think they played as well, like, throughout the course of the game. They obviously didn't have, it wasn't close enough, and they just never really had a real play at the end. But I don't know. I was like watching with my dad, and we were talking about Halliburton and his ability to score and just create offense. And it was wild that he scored 9 points in the fourth quarter or 12 or something like that. But he had like 5 points through the first 3 quarters. And it's like, that's not enough. But at the same point, it's like the Thunder are just so good at taking away the things that he does well. And they're also so good at just collapsing the defense, like, and still getting back out to shooters. And that's what I thought was going to happen. That's how I thought it was going to look. But obviously, like I said, you give Indy any sliver of an opening, they're going to take it. Yeah. And it just feels like this is how OKC is going to have to play in order to really, like you said, put their foot on their neck, because you can't leave an opening.
Can't, man. Few points about these games. One, the change that OKC made in game 1, I completely hated from the beginning.
Because Kason Wallace.
I couldn't stand that move because why? You know, you have been destroying the NBA as the starting five that you had to play down. I felt it was playing down to the competition.
Agreed.
No, bro. Like, don't change anything. Make them prove that they can beat you with this lineup, then you make a change like that. But, they learned their lesson, and they definitely went back to it very quickly. Shout out to Tyrese Halliburton, man. I thought he was absolutely outstanding in the fourth quarter, but he's got more work to do. Like, as far as I keep having arguments about superstar. Is he a superstar? He's not. I'm not there yet to call him a superstar yet. And it's stuff like I saw in game 2 where I'm kind of not there, even though he balled out in that fourth quarter for sure. But, you got to be a little bit more than that. Like, I immediately think of guys like Ben Gordon, who balled out all the time in that fourth quarter. Didn't make him a superstar, but an incredible basketball player. Not to say Tyrese can't get there, though. He can definitely get there. He's special. But he's got to score, man, because when he scores 20 or more points in these playoffs, they are 7-1. All right? So he has to score. He has got to do his thing out there. Other one, SGA, my God. 72 points. That's the most of any player in their first 2 finals games. Recent holder of that was 71 by Allen Iverson. He's just been amazing and unstoppable. 38 in the first one, 37 in the second one. Will, he's got one more level to unlock until we're talking about greatness dripping off this dude. Like, just one more thing to unlock,
Is
man.
that in terms of accolades, or is that in terms
of
No,
not accolades. His game. His game. And that's when, no matter what's going on the floor, how bad anyone is playing, or no matter what anybody else is doing, you're not going to stop me from getting 40-plus points and carrying us to a victory. Yeah. When he gets to that level, I don't care how, like, if he has a 3 or whatever you want to call it to it, when he gets to that, Will, it's over. All right?
I think I agree with that. There's, like, something very small that's, and maybe it just is the title and the finals MVP, but there's something that I think is really small that's, like, keeping me from saying he's on the same level as Jokic even, or like some of these other all-time greats. And obviously he's 26 years old. He's got plenty of time to go.
Exactly.
Not saying he can't get there. In fact, I think he will. Yes. But what's crazy about Shea is that he's so consistent. It's never 10 points one night and 50 points the next. It's 35 points every single night. And there's not that much range up or down from that. He's just so consistent. So much fun to watch. Like, I hear all of the, like, foul baiting and the free throw merchant stuff, and it's like, no, man, this guy is so talented. He plays so physical. He's so good at, like, manipulating his body and drawing contact. He's just, like, a blast to watch. And he plays like, people are talking about they want more of, like, the 90s style basketball. He's in the mid-range. That's what he's doing. Yeah. So it's so much fun to watch him. And he's a great defender too. Obviously that OKC defense is just an absolute menace. Caruso had a couple of great games there. Cason Wallace is incredible. Chet. Just the list goes on and on. But I agree with you that they should have started their 2 big lineup. I felt like that's an advantage that they really have over the Pacers of being able to play really physical and take away the paint. And I feel like that's what allowed Indiana to stay connected in that first game. And they just didn't need to. So I think that was like an example of Dagnall getting a little too cute.
Yeah, got a little too cute, man, for him. So, yeah, don't do that. Just keep it where it is. The last thing, I told you. I told you. I said what was going to happen in these finals, game 1 and game 2. It's exactly what happened. I don't know why Matt likes being right all the time. It's exhausting. Honestly, man, it's exhausting being right all the time. Like, goodness gracious. But, yeah, game 1, I thought that Indiana would win it, and I knew game 2 was nobody was winning that but OKC. But now going forward, games 3 and 4, I can see the same split happening, honestly. I can see OKC winning 1. I can see OKC winning game 3, and I can see Indiana winning game 4. That's how I kind of see it. And game 5 is what will determine every single thing, I think, after that. And I'm glad Indiana won that game because people were truly disrespecting them and counting them out. And not to say that, they weren't doing it in terms of, like, basketball. Understand, OKC is 68 games. If you had them 4-0, 4-1, I completely get it. But, man, dude, like, just the way they have been playing and how great of a coach Rick Carlisle is, I just didn't see how they didn't get at least 2 games out of this series. But they're halfway there. They still could lose all the next 3 games. We'll see. We've seen it before with the Bulls and other teams like that. But with aforementioned, I talked about Allen Iverson. They did the same thing. Won game 1 and then went on and got swept after that. So still in play, but they made it harder to see that now.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, like, to me, I wasn't like disrespecting. In my opinion, I wasn't coming at it from a point of disrespect
I don't think you were.
Of the Pacers.
Like
I just
OKC.
felt like OKC was that good. And I didn't expect, like, how does this continue to happen? Where they're coming back by 15 points in the last couple of minutes. But I think it kind of explains an interesting trend in the NBA right now, which is that in the past, like the best team has always won, right? That's why you have the dynasties. It was the Lakers, it was the Celtics, it was the Bulls, it was, the Heat when they were the Warriors. Like that's just kind of how historically the NBA has been. Mm-hmm. But in this age of parity where the talent margins are a little bit closer together, yes, I think OKC is much more talented and a better team, but could I still see Indiana winning the series now because they've shown that they can beat OKC in the finals? Mm-hmm. I could see it. And I think that's a unique and different trend in like the history of the game right now that we're seeing, where you can just like have a team of destiny or like a magic playoff run that's really exciting for some of these smaller market teams. And I think that's something you see in football more often or baseball more often, where it's like a team gets hot at the right time and they can just go and win. Mm-hmm. And that's just not something that the NBA has had historically. And so I think it's really cool that the Pacers were a 4th seed, 5th seed, and they're able to get themselves into the finals and like win games. That's really exciting. I think it's good for basketball that it's not just 7 different teams winning the championship in 7 years. Yeah. It's like different teams can get there. And I think that's a really big change and a good thing for the NBA.
A great thing, opening up to the small market teams out here, not just those 3 big, huge or 4 big, huge market squads. Lakers used to always be that, for them. It's not like that anymore. Bulls, big market. Miami, you could throw in there as well. If you want to put San Antonio down, shout out to Wemby, who's becoming a monk. Shout out to him.
I forgot to say this
first. Shout out to that young man for that. That's a really, really awesome thing. But yeah, that's another team winning those titles. But now you have these smaller markets of it. Everybody winning before the series started. What were they saying? Like Indiana, OKC, nobody's gonna watch that. Yeah, they are going to watch that. The thing is changed, around the league. You don't have to go to these markets to be promoted properly anymore. Like the world has become shorter. Technology, and travel, all those things have made it much easier to see your favorite teams or to see a face on the team, be everywhere. Look at the Minnesota Timberwolves. My goodness gracious. They were in the Western Conference Finals again with Anthony Edwards, man. Like this is the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it doesn't matter where you are, where you start, or what team you're on. You can reach that level of greatness. Denver Nuggets is another one. Milwaukee Bucks is another one, man. It doesn't matter, y'all. You've got to just get that kind of guy, period, and point blank. That's it. Get that player, and you can have all of that stuff going forward. I think also OKC has a chance to be a dynasty team, which is very scary because we haven't seen one in almost a decade and be a dynasty squad. They have got a chance to do it. And I think if they unlock this right here by winning this first championship, that's when you get to year 2, man, and you kind of got a little extra glow on you. You know what I'm saying? When you're coming up, just being that young team and the resiliency of it. But, yeah, they're in great shape. I think Indiana also is in great shape, and I think this will continue to be a really, really awesome finals.
Yeah, and I think what makes that work is that this is not a market-driven sport anymore, in my opinion. I think there's examples of that where it's like, okay, the Knicks fan base is going to show up. Yeah. The Lakers fan base is going to mob Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas every year because it's the Lakers. But aside from that, it's like this is a star-driven league. And if you have a star player in Oklahoma City, people are going to show up to watch that because that's what they want to watch. They want to watch the star players play at the highest level, and they want to see greatness. So I am with you on that, and I think it's good for the league. I do wonder about this OKC team, as you mentioned, the dynasty thing. Like, are they gonna? Don't want to put the cart before the horse, but like, are they gonna win this one? Are they gonna win next year? We talked about that with the Celtics last year, and then you're seeing what's happening with them. They're kind of unraveling right now, and talking about trading Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Do you break up the Jays? All because of one injury. Yeah. So it's fascinating. You don't want to anoint anyone before they've done it, but what we talked about in terms of like parity and small market teams and, new champions and like teams getting hot, the Thunder could just say, you know what? No, we're still doing the dynasty thing because we're about to rip off 5 championships.
It's true, man. Game 3 is on Wednesday in Indiana. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the top 3 priorities of the Chicago Bulls, the Bleacher Report article, also about the Bulls' top offseason priority. We got a lot to dive into, y'all. So come on back after this break.
Breaking news from Bet365. We have a new promo dropping exclusively for the NBA Finals. that offers customers a chance to win a part of a $100,000 jackpot in bonus bets with First Play Fortune. To enter for a chance to win, you must place a 3-leg same-game parlay, where the 3 legs are: player to score the first basket, player to get the first assist, player to get the first rebound. Only bets consisting of those 3 exact legs will be eligible. You can log in to place your bet or sign up using code CHGO365. Deposit $10 and place your 3-leg same-game parlay bet with a minimum of a $1 bet. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER. In-app only. Terms and conditions apply. Opt-in required.
You know, making money moves should be just like me. Simple and smooth. And that's why there is Cash App. All right? No extra hoops to jump through. No fuss, no mess, and no extra stress. You want money sent to you? You want to receive it simply? Use Cash App, y'all. And for a limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. Very simple. Just download Cash App and sign up. Use our exclusive referral code CHGO Bulls in your profile. Send $5 to a friend. Within 14 days, you'll get $10 right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all for rolling with us on CHGO Bulls Podcast Live. Make sure you're hitting that like button. What's up to y'all in the chat? Keep your comments and all those cool things coming. And also, if you want to drop a super chat in there, you can do that as well. Show your love. Any kind of way you want to, just show your love to us, man. There was an article here in Bleacher Report by Dan Favale. You got to do that one time, baby. Talking about the number one offseason priority for each NBA team. So, of course, he talked about the number one offseason priority for the Chicago Bulls, and it was not overpaying for Josh Giddey. I said, wow, when I saw that. I was tripping when I saw that. So I'm going to go ahead and break this one down for you guys. This is from our guy, Dan. Josh Giddey was a restricted free agent and expected to command a 5-year deal from the Chicago Bulls, valued around $150 million. That's from our guy, Mark Stein. Shout out to him. And Bulls fans better hope it's a smokescreen. Annual average salaries of $30 million per year aren't what they used to be, but they still close to 20% of the cap. Giddey isn't good enough of a starting point guard to command that much. He has great size and vision and shot the ball well from 3 in the past year, but opposing teams don't care about guarding him on the perimeter. He doesn't have the blow-by speed or craft around the basket to make them pay, and his own defense is bad enough that he almost exclusively needs to be stashed against slower, bigger players. Even if you think this is an overly harsh critique of Giddey, Chicago has no reason to keep negotiations against itself. To keep negotiating against itself, there is not going to be a market above the bigger mid-level exception of $14.1 million for the 22-year-old unless the Brooklyn Nets are feeling spicy. Just like last year, Patrick Williams, the Bulls hold all the cards. They folded on those previous negotiations. Anyway, giving Patrick Williams a 5-year pact that aged into one of the NBA's least attractive contracts. They cannot afford to make the same inexplicable error with Josh Giddey. Goat, after hearing these words, sir, do you agree, disagree, and how do you feel about this being the number one priority?
I mean, it's definitely the number one priority in terms of this is like the first thing that they have to deal with. Obviously, once the season ends, they can start figuring that out with their own free agents. They've got the draft. So to me, like those are the top 2 things literally on the agenda. And, you know, I go back and forth on this. Like I think, and I want to spend like a full episode one day, and I probably want to write a longer thing really laying out all my thoughts because there are a lot of them. But I go back and forth on like, is $30 million a year too much or what you should give Josh Giddey? Mm-hmm. I feel like part of me thinks that that's just like way too much, like just period, point blank. That's too much to give a guy who has had basically like 25 games of really high level basketball. Mm-hmm. When you know that there are other flaws there. On the other hand, like I do think the idea of $30 million and $150 million over 5 years is like kind of being blown out of proportion. Basically, that's half of a max deal. So this is not a situation where it's, 2011 and you give Derrick Rose the 35% max contract and it completely hamstrings you when he's hurt and you have no way to replace him for 5 years, it's half of that. It's half of a max contract. And actually, like, it would be even less than that for the first couple of years, because basically the way that these deals work is typically you sign a deal that has 8% annual raises, right? And so like Patrick Williams signed a flat $18 million a year contract. That's pretty atypical. You saw Jalen Suggs sign the descending deal where it started at 35 and went down to about 25. Basically, if we assume that Giddey is going to sign a standard extension like that, it would start at about 25.8 million next year and go up to 34 million. But that would be like 16.5% of the salary cap next year, not that much. And it would actually go down by the end of it to 15% because the raises that he's getting are 8%, whereas the league's salary cap is expected to rise by 10%, and that's compounding. So basically, the salary cap is going to be rising at a much greater rate than Josh Giddey's contract would if he got those raises. So all that to say, I don't think that $30 million is like so incredibly damaging. I think it's more than you'd want to give him, and I think it's more than you'd want to just give out in general, because every additional dollar that you spend by overpaying someone, it's taking away from other opportunities. Okay. If you're overpaying Patrick Williams by $5 million a year, and now you pay Giddey, overpay Giddey by $5 million a year, that's the mid-level exception that you can't give out that year. So I do think that it matters. And then, of course, there's the issue of the negotiations and other teams being interested, will he get an offer and will he not? I don't know what his exact value is in a vacuum. And I think that's one part of the equation. But we don't live in a vacuum. And so we have to figure out, if you're the Bulls, how do you manage that? Is he going to, go out and get an offer sheet? Is it worth it to sign him to $30 million a year to prevent you from having to match him at $38 million a year, which would be his max number? There's just a lot that goes into it. And I think ultimately it's how comfortable are you with Giddey being the primary ball handler on your team for the next 5 years? Because whatever you pay him, that's the role that he's going to have on this team. And how do you build around that? And can you do that if you are dishing out 15, 16% of your salary cap to him? I don't know the answer to that. But I certainly think that's like the number one priority for this team to have to figure out as they head into the offseason.
I really liked what he said, just as far as how he approached why overpaying would be wrong, because he approached it from the money aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? Saying, hey, it's still 20% of your cap. He also approached it for how he felt about him as a player. Right. And that's the part I kind of, want to deal on. Was he talked about, great vision, great size, all those awesome things, but opposing teams aren't worried about him. They aren't concerned about him. And in this league, the guys with the big money get the buckets. And Bill Russell said it, perfectly. This game has always been and will forever be about buckets. You got to get those buckets. If Josh Giddey is averaging 25 points a game along with those 10 rebounds and 9 assists, oh, yeah, he's getting that check. You're paying that young man for putting up those kind of numbers for sure, because some kind of way he's getting to the – I don't know how, but he's getting the ball into the bucket at a consistent rate. And if he's doing that consistently, doing what we saw him do in that magical month of March, then yes, he's going to get that money. But it just says to me that people around the league aren't really sold on that month yet to be like, oh yeah, I can see myself giving him that kind of money just based off of what we saw in March. So I don't want the Bulls to be sold completely on that. Should it factor in when you're going into negotiations? Without a doubt, it should factor in, because he showed you, hey man, if you put this around me and you give me a little opportunity, this is what I can provide you. It's just now about, can you provide it for me for 82 games? Can you provide it for me for 71 games? Anything over 65. Like, you have to have that consistency with it, not just that short stretch. So I think that's what's valued and valid and very important about what he's saying. His game has to match that contract that Giddey wants. And he feels like giving over $30 million for a guy who can't do those things that we think have a real high value just isn't worth it. I'm there with him on that as far as overpaying him, but you do have to pay him. Like, you have to get him his contract. You've got to sign him. You've given up Alex Caruso for him. You've made the decision, we're going forward with him. So I get it. You got to get that contract with him. Some way, Somehow they have got to work that out. And I'm curious to see how they go about that when that time comes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it, again, just comes back to, like, how are you going to build this team? Like, it's not just a question of, is Giddey worth that amount of money? It's like, how do you go about building around him once you've spent that money? Because that money cuts into the money that you would have next summer in free agency. That money cuts into, I mean, and again, it's not like it's completely an albatross contract the second that you use it, but effectively you're paying him a large amount of money to be the primary guy on your offense. If you believe that he can be the primary guy on a team that goes beyond the play-in, that goes beyond the first round, that goes, like, you know, on a deep playoff run, then I think it's totally worth it. But I just don't know that we've seen anything at this point that makes you feel confident in that, especially with the way that the play-in ended. And I don't want that one data point to matter less than the other, because that game mattered more than the end of the regular season, right? I think it would be easy for people to say, well, they went, you know, 15-5 down the stretch. They lost the important one.
Yeah.
So to me, I do think that really matters. And I don't want it to get lost in any of this that, like, I think Giddey got a lot better.
Yes.
Like, he really improved. And I think it's always a challenge to have to evaluate and pay your guys when they're young, because you're projecting, right? You're not just saying, I'm paying you for what you've done so far. It's like you're paying them for what you hope that they can become. And so there's always a little bit of risk in that. But he really did improve. He improved as a shooter. He made 37% of his threes this year, 45% after All-Star break. But it's like, that was so much that I almost believe it less, because there's no way that can sustain. So, yeah, I don't want it to get lost in the conversation that, like, I do think Giddey really improved and answered some of the questions that I had about him. So it's just a shame that they have to figure this out now before next summer, when they are going to have all this flexibility, because AK's really, you know, been outspoken about the fact that they're going to have cap space next year. They got off of their bad contracts. They got expiring guys for Zach LaVine. They got off of an extra year of his money. And so that's great. That's important, but it only counts until you have to start signing the next contracts. And as soon as you start doing that, if they become bad contracts, then you're stuck with them. And then you don't have that flexibility anymore. And now you're stuck with them for the entirety of however long you sign them. So I think they witnessed how damaging that can be with Patrick's deal. And a lot of people think that that's like one of the worst contracts in the league. As a percentage of the cap, it's like not that much. It's basically mid-level exception, but that means you can't spend it on a player who could actually be impactful. And so compounding mistakes is really, really damaging, more so than just one single bad contract. And you can't sign Giddey to a bad number where it ends up being an albatross, and now you can't fix that because you've got two guys that are making too much money. And then the same thing with Kobe. And again, I think Kobe improved a lot, but it's just like, these are hard questions, and you end up having to make these calls before you necessarily want to, but that's the challenge of it. And I do think Giddey really improved. Like, I'm comfortable paying him more than I was at this time last year. But,
that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I still don't know that it's like what's best for the Bulls organization, because at the end of the day, he is whether you pay him max money or $10 million a year, whatever, in order for him to be effective, he has to operate like a max player, right? He's got to be the one with the ball in his hands. And so there's the question of, how do you build around that? Can you bring in another max type of player to play with him? Will he succeed in that? And I just don't know that there was really anything that could have happened this year where you would have felt really comfortable with knowing the answer to that heading into having to pay him.
Yeah, and the production part is the biggest part for me. Because as you mentioned, Patrick's contract doesn't look bad, but the production is what makes it look so much worse, is that he didn't produce like we needed him to, and don't have faith that he's going to, but we hope so. But Giddey's going to get paid. Let's see how much it is, y'all. We're going to take another break right here. When we come back, we're going to list our top 3 off-season priorities for this Chicago Bulls team. It should be cup holders at number 1. Come on back, y'all. CHGO Bulls Podcast.
Hit the like button.
Katie's feeling threatening today. Make sure you hit the like for us. We'd really greatly appreciate it. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer. It is your one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs. Sunnyside has an expertly curated menu with over 100 strains to choose from, plus easy online ordering and in-store pickup at locations in the city like Wrigleyville and River North, and the suburbs like Champaign, South Beloit, and more. If you're just starting out, Sunnyside has expert guidance and brands we know you'll love, like Good News and Mindy's. And if you're a pro, they've got you covered there too, with over 100 strains on the menu and new ones added daily. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day, only for 21 or older, or Illinois MedCard holders. For existing users, use promo code CHGO50 for 50% off one Cresco Labs brand item.
You ever walk into a big box store just to get some flooring, and there's some person that's working in flooring who doesn't know anything about flooring? That's Biff. Ladies and gentlemen, get biffed. Get that shopping home convenience that you only get with Empire Today. They give you that clear upfront pricing, and it's all inclusive. Plus, they can schedule an installation as soon as today. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals whose focus is only on flooring every single day of the week. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home, y'all. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using that promo code CHGO. You heard me right, a $350 discount with the code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/CHGO for full details. 588-2300 Empire Today. Rolling along with y'all. CHGO Bulls podcast. That happened just like this. Just want to pause for you. Big Dave, we'll go Gottlieb. Katie Duffy on production. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. Please hit the like button. Trying to save y'all. I promise you.
What is this
hit
comment
the like button
from the Mana Lantern? I need goat to reference a different animal per episode. What does that mean?
It's because you keep saying albatross, and I said I appreciate the albatross.
That just means that it's a bad contract.
I know, but I love like that expression. I love, and you drop it super casually. So I said in the chat that I appreciate it. So Mana Lantern is saying you got to drop a different one.
Okay, I'll work on that.
You got another album on top of your head right now?
No.
Goat? You could have just said goat. Roll with that.
Yeah, I suppose so.
You could have did that. It's okay. Yeah, it's who you are, man. It's
all right.
All right.
I don't want to throw that one around, you know?
That's for other people to do.
It's for other people to do.
The people. All right. So we just talked about Bleacher Report's article about the number one off-season priority for the Chicago Bulls, which got us to thinking, why don't we give a list of the top 3 priorities off-season for the Chicago Bulls? Very curious to see what you say, Goat.
So I wonder how similar they will.
We sent them in to Miss Katie Duffy, and she put it out this way. Let's go with GOAT.
Are we doing? Oh, we're doing all.
All right.
Off-season
no
priority.
Bad deals.
Number 1, no bad deals.
Number 2, hit on draft pick. And number 3, commit to something. Let's start with, obviously, number 1, no bad deals.
Yeah, I figured we'd be talking about Giddey specifically. So I didn't want to just have to rehash that whole thing. Obviously, Giddey's a big piece of that, right? And again, I have not yet in my mind determined what is a good or a bad deal for Giddey. I will come to some conclusion and put it out there.
Okay.
And stand on it at some point.
As it gets closer.
Not ready to do that quite yet.
All right.
But I think the concept of no bad deals is really important.
Okay.
We're talking about flexibility. We're talking about free agent space in 2026, having the ability to go out and sign somebody, or having the ability to do a sign and trade, or take back money in a trade to get a draft pick. There's a lot you can do with cap space, and you're not going to be the only team with cap space, but that is an asset that you can leverage in deals across the league. So that's really important. I think it starts now with not signing guys to bad deals. They don't have a lot of free agents. Obviously, Trey Jones is somebody that they could potentially want to bring back. They would need to move off of a player or two in order to be able to do that. But Giddey is obviously the first one. But we saw last summer, I think Jalen Smith is not a super damaging amount of money, but he's a third string center making almost $10 million a year.
Shout out.
That's not great for your books. So even the mid-level exception stuff, The Javon Carter $6 million deal, like that stuff really adds up. That's $15 million in guys who don't play on a regular basis.
Yeah.
That's the mid-level exception. So signing guys like that this summer really could impede your ability to create space and therefore have flexibility in trades or in free agency next summer. Mm-hmm. So I think, like we've talked about this a little bit, but like the idea that Arturas asked for patience, to me, that means don't do anything that you will regret in terms of free agents this summer, because that will impact your next summer. So it starts with Giddey. Obviously, he's the big domino, but like even signing Kobe White, obviously they can only give him a certain amount in an extension. And I think that would be a value contract on that number, but that impedes your ability to, use that cap hold to go above the cap next year. And that impacts your flexibility. So no bad contracts means keeping the flexibility open, keeping your books free, not having bad money on your books that you'll have to attach assets to get off of. Like I said before, the flexibility piece is huge and that's really important, but it only lasts until you start signing bad deals. Yeah. They already have one bad deal on their books. They had to move a lot to get off of another bad deal in Zach LaVine. Mm-hmm. And now they're in a place where they really are freed up, and they should not leverage that. They should not put themselves in a position to not have that going into next season.
Let me ask you something. So you mentioned Jalen Smith, you mentioned Javon Carter. These guys aren't playing a lot. As you mentioned, coming off the bench and not doing anything. How hard or how bad of a deal do you think it still is? Even though these are bench guys, I know Javon's getting his money. He's going to get his player option, $6 million. I know he's making $10 million a year coming off the bench, and a guy like Jalen Smith. Even the contract for Patrick Williams, as we mentioned, doesn't look bad on paper. It's just the actual production of it. So these are like minor, small deals. Are they still really, truly bad deals, or is it just the bad production that's coming from it?
It's the compounding effect of them. So like having one bad contract on your books is okay, but that means you have to have a really good contract on your books to offset that. And that's where like having a guy being productive on a rookie scale deal comes in. Okay. Like Modest is probably, ideally next year, Modest is outplaying his contract, meaning he's providing you more value than what he's costing you on his contract. That's a really not an easy thing to do, but it's more likely to get out of a rookie scale deal because those deals are so small compared to a guy on his rookie extension. Like Giddey at $30 million is not going to be providing you as much value as Modest on $5 million, right? So I think they just need to be careful about that. And again, I don't think like paying $6 million to Javon Carter is like going to make or break a franchise. Right. I don't think paying Patrick Williams $18 million is going to make or break a franchise. But doing those two things together and having, Kevin Huerter for $18 million and Zach Collins for $18 million and all these guys, like the Bulls are lucky that those numbers are coming off of the books after next season and jeopardizing that space to sign somebody that they may like in free agency on, the mid-level exception, I just don't think is worth it right now.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to your number 2 on that list, sir. Hit on draft pick. What do you mean by hit on the draft pick? Will it go Gottlieb?
They absolutely need to. They can't miss on picks anymore. They only have one every year. Like this is the way that they are going to reshape their roster, right? We have not seen a lot of trades, although they have made a couple here in the last year or so. They did a lot of work to get their pick back. Like they can't draft another Dalen Terry at 12. They can't, draft a guy who is not going to be impactful in the lottery. And especially when we talked about the contracts, like these are real tickets to having impact production on not a lot of money. And that frees you up to make big swings elsewhere on your books. If you have 2 guys on their rookie scale deals that are making a combined $10 million, then it's okay to pay Giddey whatever you're going to pay him or Kobe whatever you're going to pay him, like theoretically. So there's also just not a lot of ways that the Bulls can improve, right? Like they just don't have a lot of extra assets. They don't have a lot of great young players. They need to add to the cupboard. And having a player that exceeds the value of the 12th overall pick and really hitting on that guy to where you're getting like a starter caliber player, that's really important. So I think that's like a huge piece of what they need to do. They cannot miss on this pick.
So let me talk to you about hitting on the pick. Obviously Modest you hit on, but that was kind of just the best scenario of the situation. When you say hit on it, are we talking modest levels of hitting on it or just actually getting a good player who's going to give you a solid return?
I think that's like the baseline. Like you have to find somebody that's going to be a player.
Okay. Regardless.
And like whether it's a high level starter or, you know, a rotation player that you can really trust and count on, like Io at the 12th pick is probably a good hit, right? Like he's not super flashy. He's not, you know, like got superstar upside, but he's like a really productive role player that you can count on every single night. And if that's like the baseline, I think you're doing great. But obviously, like you also have to balance that with, we need a little upside here. Like we don't have a lot of chances to get real upside on this roster. And so finding, you know, that balance or that fine line between somebody that you feel confident in being productive, but also having upside, I think that's really important too, because like I said, there's just not a lot of chances for this team to add star upside.
Sure.
Right.
12,
like they're just, I mean, maybe you can make a play in free agency next year, you know, for Luka Doncic or something like that. He's like the big name. We don't know what's going to happen with him in terms of a contract extension.
Right.
But like maybe Modest turns into a star. Maybe Giddey turns into a star. Maybe Kobe. There's just not a lot of like bites at the apple in that sense.
Sure.
Like there's a couple of guys that you can hope for, but there's no one that's like, this guy I think could really be something. So they just need to accumulate as many chances of that as possible. And that's why it's important to get extra picks, right? Because you don't want to put too much pressure on any one player. That's why getting just Giddey for Caruso was a little bit risky to me, because you are then putting so much pressure on Giddey to hit to make it worth that trade.
Okay.
Whereas if you had gotten a couple of other things, take some pressure off of Giddey, now you got Giddey and a draft pick to go with it, like that really changes things. So only having one pick in the first round, I think really increases the pressure to make it a good pick. And I think that's why it's so important that they hit.
Does the Giddey trade also put pressure for this pick to hit at 12, since they didn't get one in return?
I think maybe less so of an impact on Giddey. Like at this point, like I do think at a certain point we're going to need to stop talking about Giddey in terms of the trade, and we're just going to need to talk about him in terms of the player that he is and the contract that he's on. Maybe that just happens after he signs his deal. And if and when that point comes, like now it's just back on Arturas and the Bulls front office to like make good decisions and bring in good players. And like I said, there's just not a lot of ways to do that other than in the draft. Free agency is not as much of a thing anymore.
Sure.
Guys are signing extensions and then asking for trades. So like how valuable is that cap space really? I think you're going to probably have to end up using it on in sign-in trades or bringing their guys back. And so draft picks is really like the way to get a big swing. And so I think just the pressure builds and builds as you have fewer assets, because you have fewer ways to try to bring in that star player.
All right, let's look at your last and final one of top 3 bull season, off-season priorities, sir. Commit to something. You sound like a few women in my life who have said this to me when it comes to dating them. And then I tell them and I just kind of leave. And that's what I committed to, was leaving. So, but commit to something.
That was absolutely hilariously. Yeah, they need to like either. Okay, and the way that I'll give an example of this is with Lonzo and Vucevic. So to me, committing to something means going one direction or the other.
Sure.
They've really been like straddling the line between being competitive and rebuilding. I think it's a really challenging thing to do. But even if you are going to do that, I still think committing to doing that by trading away the veteran players for picks while still trying to be competitive with the young players with experience that you have is probably the best way to do that. So for me, when I say commit to something, it kind of just means like either go all in on a trade, really tear it down, or at the very least, like move Lonzo and Vooch, get some extra draft picks in there to take the pressure off of your ability to hit on this pick or on future picks. But also to give the young players more runway, let them be the reason why the team is winning or losing. And then you'll have better information about how to move forward, plus additional assets. So to me, I didn't want to just say like, you have to trade Lonzo and Vooch, but I think those are good examples of, if we can get 2 second-round picks for Vooch and, you know, a protected first for Lonzo, we're in great shape to be able to move forward with additional assets and with a core that we can really evaluate in itself. I think the same is true for Herter, for Trey Jones, if you can do a sign and trade, for Zach Collins, for Jalen Smith, like any of these guys who are not foundational pillars to the team that you know you're going to be moving forward with. we can agree or disagree on who those pillars are.
Sure.
But I think if you're Arturas, you kind of have a sense of who do you want to build with and try to get some additional assets for the other players that aren't a part of that. And I think that's like a really important piece of after the draft happens, after you get the Giddey situation figured out, that's, I think, really a key of building this roster and navigating the challenges of a roster built around Giddey, Kobe, and Modest moving forward is you need to have like additional stuff coming in. And again, I think that takes pressure off of you to really nail it on draft picks in any given year.
So it doesn't matter if you agree with what they've committed to or not. You just want to see that there's a plan in place.
Yeah. And I think that I think that there is I guess I'm not going to sit here and say that like I need them to rebuild or I need them to go all in. I just think you can only straddle the line for so long. And I think when you have to start paying guys, that's when those decisions get tough.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing it with teams like the Houston Rockets or even the Pacers last year when they went out and traded for Siakam. They knew they had a good core. They knew they had their franchise guy. They knew they had another piece, but they needed the one that like brought everything together. And with the way that the contracts work, like Tyrese Halliburton goes from making 7, 8 million to 35, 40, 50 million.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you need to make a move before that number kicks in to be able to get a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think the Rockets are in a similar boat this year. They're going to have to pay Amen Thompson in a year or two. They have to pay Jabari Smith and Tari Eason this year. They just had to pay Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün. Like all of a sudden your roster is really expensive with just the young guys that you drafted. Can you do something to supplement them and bring in the Fred VanVleet or bring in the Kevin Durant or Giannis, whatever the big swing is of this offseason? I think the Bulls are facing that tough decision probably at this trade deadline of once you have Giddey in place and you're up against having to pay Kobe and Ayo, you need to make a big decision before that. So whether it's free agency or a pre-agency deal where you're trading for a guy and then signing him long-term or just making a big trade, like that's kind of the window to make the big swing. And I do think that that window is kind of coming up. And that's, so all three of these things tied together of committing down one path, not having bad money on the books, having that flexibility. And part of that is getting Giddey on a good number. Part of that is clearing out the clutter and getting off of the guys that aren't a part of your long-term, especially if it gives you assets, because in addition to those like lottery tickets of upside swings, they also provide you cheap production, right? And so if you're going to go out and make a big swing, you got to have a couple of rookie scale contracts on there to balance that out.
That makes all the sense in the world. You're a smart guy, Will, to go Gottlieb. Let's get to mine. Top 3 off-season priorities for the Chicago Bulls. As you see, number 1, it is sign Josh Giddey. Number 2, it is trade Nikola Vucevic. And number 3, it is proper draft strategy. Obviously, we'll start with one. Signing.
Yeah, let's dig into it. So,
let's start with one.
Well, I'll let you take it. But do you want to give your take about what they should sign him to, or do you just want to talk about it theoretically?
Oh, I'm going to get into it.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into it.
So, signing Josh Giddey, I feel, is the top priority. You've made the decision that he is your guy. That question has been asked so many times, but I felt the question was answered when you made the trade. When you made the trade and all you wanted was Josh Giddey for your number 1 asset, you told me that you want him to be that dude for your team going forward, period. That's it. I want that guy to be the man. And then when he has the month that he had in March and he talked about his comfort level here and all those great things, for me, it further cements that Josh Giddey is the guy you want to build around. So is Josh Giddey a number 1? I don't think so. I think he's a number 2. But since you've committed to it, you're going to build around him. So whether you can bring in a number 1 and still kind of build around a Josh Giddey kind of player. You can still bring in somebody better than him to be that guy, but your offense is going to be run and built around one Joshua Giddey. So that commitment is made. So if you made that commitment, you go ahead and you sign him to the contract. I completely agree with the Bleacher Report article we just read from our guy Dan, and I don't want to overpay. $30 million is not something I'm willing to give. Not willing to give that $30 million, but I think the Bulls and Josh Giddey can definitely come to an agreement on something between 25 and maybe 28. I really think they can find something there that is a real sweet spot and a real fair payment for Josh Giddey, where they're not just stuck with that, over the past few years of paying him all this money and he isn't producing like they think that he should. So I think it's fair to give him that money. They've decided they wanted him to have that money and to be here. And if that's the plan for it going forward, then go ahead and make that decision. That should be priority number one on day one when you're able to do it for Josh.
So what do you think? I agree with the number in terms of like that range makes sense to me. We'll get more into like the dynamics of like only the Nets have cap space. So like, how do you factor those that into your negotiations? Like, where do you start? Where do you come up to? Yeah. I do think that range is like probably where it ends up. Mm. What about the years though? Do you think it's better to go long and try to get value on the backside? Or do you think that that's too much risk where now if it doesn't go well, you're stuck with him for 4 or 5 years as opposed to having the like additional year or two to evaluate and then being tasked with that same decision again?
I think you sign him to the long-term deal. Because again, Will, they made the commitment. They've told you that this is the guy. So if you're telling me that, then you give him his 5-year deal. You hand him his 5, you give him his money, and you roll with the consequences of your actions after that. Like, yeah, it's a risk. Obviously, it's a risk because let's say he doesn't repeat what he did, in the month of March. Well, that's just what you're going to have to go ahead and risk because you made the trade and said he's your guy. So you pay him like that, you treat him like that, and you hope he gives you the best that he can give you and continue to improve. Now, as you said, we definitely saw improvement from that young man. He definitely did things we didn't think he was able to do. I didn't think he was able to shoot a high percentage from 3. He shot a nice average percentage from 3. And I saw him do it twice this season where he shot a ridiculous average from the three-point line. I remember when he was shooting over 50% earlier on in the season, and then later in the season, it was at 40%. For him. So finding his balance in the middle, if he does that, that means you're an average three-point shooter in the league. Even if he just shoots like 32 to 34 for the rest of that time, he's still an average three-point shooter in the league, man. You can take that. You can live with that. The ball handling, you know what I'm saying? You know he can do that. The passing, you know he can make your team better with that. The rebounding, which I told you is his superpower, you know that also helps as well. Putting butts in the seats is also a factor in signing this. Josh Giddey can definitely do that with that international appeal that he has. We saw after he hit that buzzer beater, Will, he was everywhere. He was on NBA Today. We saw him on Good Morning Australia. Like he was all over the place after that, man, letting you and doing it in a Bulls jersey, which again will put more butts in the seat. So there's a love for Josh Giddey, which is why he's so polarizing because they're either like, I truly love him, he's the greatest ever, or I truly don't love him. I don't know why the Bulls are signing him. But, man, he is a guy, though. He is definitely a piece that you can kind of build with. And so, yeah, I have no problem giving him the years like that, Will. And because you made that decision. Like, because it's already been made. Yeah, they can try to dance around it all they want. You've made the decision on him already.
I totally agree with that. I feel like there's people that are holding on to maybe we can get him on a cheap deal and then trade him or something. It's like that decision was already made when they traded for him in the first place, which is why it was so weird that they didn't get a deal done.
Yeah.
And, like, I think we probably would have been irate if they had signed him to a 5-year, $125 million contract, 25 a year last year.
Yeah, you're right.
But that would have turned out to be a good deal.
It would, yeah.
And so now it's looking like even more. I wonder, like, what are sort of the bells and whistles? Like, are they going to give him a team option?
Right.
Or I'm sorry, are they going to give him a player option? Can they get a team option?
Right.
Like, is it escalating or descending? Is it flat? Like, what can you get back if you're going to give him this money you've already committed to make your life a little bit easier?
You protect yourself on this.
Exactly. And I think that those are also some areas that, I mean, we'll spend more time talking about, but like that's a big part of those negotiations too.
Without a doubt. All right. Number two on my list of top 3 Bulls offseason priorities, trade Nikola Vucevic. Please. I wish I could have fit please on there. Trade him. Just for both parties, this needs to happen. For one, let's talk about the Bulls half of it. You are still stuck in limbo about what kind of team you want to be. Yes, you can go sign Josh Giddey. You got him. He's there. He's cool. All right. Having Nikola Vucevic there is a huge shout out to my man, Matt Peck. Is that huge carrot that is still dangling right there because you're not going to keep him. And whether you decide to keep him or not, he's going to go. When it's time to go, he's going to be out of here, all right? He's not staying. It's time for him to play for his legacy. That's what his thinking is. So for your sake, as a Chicago Bulls franchise, going into this offseason, when you're ready to do all your offseason workouts and all that stuff, it is great to have in place exactly what you need in place, and you know what you're going to have for your future, not just for right now, this season. The Bulls making a move to get a guy like Giddey, and who they get in this draft and Modest Muzelis is for your future, all right? Vooch isn't going to be for that. So having somebody around at that center position, whoever you pick up, whatever you do, that is going to be your future for the next 2 to 3 years, at least. That is going to be your guy. So you've got to make that decision, because it's not going to be Nikola Vucevic. On Vucevic's side, I just said he's playing for legacy, man. It's time for him to win. Why don't you go ahead and reward him for the great seasons or the good seasons he's giving you here with the Chicago Bulls by letting him go and get in a situation where he can be successful. He needs that in his career. The man has never been out the first round of the playoffs in his career when he's been that guy. It didn't happen in Orlando. It didn't happen here in Chicago. And I don't know if it went down like that in Philly, but he wasn't that guy when he was in Philly. When he was that guy in Orlando with the Bulls, it never happened. First round, out of here. First round, out of here. Play in, up out of here. So it has to happen for him that way, for his legacy, so he can kind of go out on his own terms, basically being carried out on your shield, because a warrior wants to be carried out on their shield, man. You know what I mean? That's the best way to go. So I think that's what they should do. Trade him, make your decision easy for yourself and your team and what you want to do, and make his decision easy also about going somewhere he could be successful.
And you're in a position where you think they just need to take the first deal available? Like,
not necessarily the first, but you can negotiate. We can talk. I'm sure there'll be at least 2 deals, 2 teams, I think. At least, at the bare minimum, there'll be 2 teams that says, hey, man, I'll give you something for Vooch. At least.
You think?
You'll find that. Yes. I think there'll be 2 teams that'll say, I'll give you something for him. Now, do you like it or do you not like it? That's what negotiations are for.
Yeah.
You can figure that out.
I just don't know. I guess we'll see. Like, he's obviously not going to be the first domino that falls in free agency or in, once trades really start to pick up. Maybe there will be, but I don't know. I feel like there's just not going to be a lot of suitors. And so, again, an example of, a guy who you wanted to pay, you wanted to reward for the way that he played, and you wanted to keep him around, but like those extra couple million that you overpaid by, that's impacting his trade market value.
Sure.
And I think that's something that they need to consider for Giddey, for Kobe, for all these guys. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that they find something for all the reasons that you mentioned. But I am just a little skeptical.
But also watching what you're seeing in the NBA Finals adds to that as well. Even if you're watching the Eastern Conference Finals and you're watching Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson and what they did, bigs are very, very important and are having a moment right now.
I wonder how he would fit with like another Mitchell Robinson type of big.
Yeah.
Where he could be more of the spacer, but also the facilitator and, have a sort of lob threat rim protector next to him. I think that's interesting.
All that's a thing. So we'll see how it is going forward. Our last one here in the Bulls offseason priorities, proper draft strategy. I just don't want them to go in, Will, and make a pick where it feels like they're trying to get over on everybody, or make a pick where they found out they figured it out 10 minutes before the draft. You know what I mean? I want a proper, straight up strategy. I want a list of a bunch of dudes. Start at number 2 and just list everybody on there. All right. Whether you think they're going to get them or not, give me that list. Start marking them off as it goes along. If you don't get the guy you want, and if you're not sure about anyone else, trade down. It's okay to trade down and get more draft assets and things like that. But I don't want another who. I've done that twice during this tenure of these first round guys where they've drafted players. I've said who. I don't want to do that again in the first round. Who is for me is for a second round.
No less.
You know what I mean? Like, who is for the second round? It's not for the first. So I think it should go that way. They should go ahead and pick up those guys that kind of way. Have a proper strategy and know what you're doing when you're up into the draft process, all right? That's it for us here on the Fast Channels. Make sure you tune in on Overtime on all CHGO Chicago, because we're going to continue this. But yeah, well, I want that strategy to be set and proper and not just walked in with just folded up pieces of paper, that you're just putting out. I want a big board. You know what I mean? Like everybody, just whoever you think is available and could be at number 12, because you got guys you can draft for position. You got best player available stuff. You got best fit. There's a lot of things you can get into at 12. You want a center, I just talked about with Vooch, there's several centers that could be available for you. You want best player available, who I feel will be the best player available if he's there, and my man Cedric Coward. If you want to go with fit, there's definitely guys there for that as well. But man, I just don't want them to approach this as just, okay, hey, how old this guy, nobody's looking at this. Nobody's expecting that. That's because he was supposed to be picked at the bottom of the first round or into the second. That's why nobody's expecting it, man. I want the strategy to be right. And if it don't work and that guy isn't there, we'll trade down. I have no problem with them trading down and saying, give me extra picks on this. 19, as you mentioned, 19 to 26. Cool. You know what I mean? You want to trade with somebody to trade down to get somebody else? Great. I'm okay with all of that, man. But I want them to have that proper draft strategy.
So you don't even care what it is necessarily. You just want there to be a tangible thing that you can point to and say, this made sense to me.
Correct. Because I know who I want. So I can't go in there with that kind of mindset. I already know who I want, and I'm dead set on who I want, and that's Cedric Coward. But I don't plan on them getting Cedric Coward at all. I plan on them, going somewhere else, getting a center, getting a big man. I can see them getting another guard, something like those things I can see happening. So that's why I don't approach it from, oh, man, you got to get this guy right here. He has to be the guy. I know who the guy is, and I think that guy will be available, but I don't think they'll go ahead and get that person. So if that's not going to be the case, who do you feel is best available player at that point in time? Who do you feel is that guy for your team who can help Josh Giddey? Because that's who you're building your team around, right? Who do you feel fits with him the best going into this draft, man? Those are the questions that I want to know that you can answer after you make this pick. And like you said, when they make this pick, Will, I want to be like, yeah, okay, I see it. It's not what I would have done because I want Cedric, but I see this. This makes all the sense in the world to go ahead and get this guy.
Yeah, I think it's almost like having a good backup plan, because it's like there might be the guy that you really hope for, but if they go, where do you pivot to? And we've all done like a fantasy football or fantasy basketball draft where you come in with the strategy of I want this guy and this guy in my first 2 rounds. I want to pair them together. And then it doesn't work and you have to pivot. And I just feel like they need to be ready with some backup plans, whether it's the trade down that you mentioned, trading out, maybe it's trading up to go get a guy. I'm curious to see if they will sit back and let it come to them, or if they'll be more aggressive in trying to get a specific person, or whether it's a specific person or just specific assets. Maybe we don't really care about these 2 players, but we have an opportunity to trade up and jump up and get a tier higher of a player for a low cost. Let's take that opportunity. Yeah. Or maybe it's the opposite and it's a move back or a move out. Or maybe a team is looking for a guard on draft night and you're able to make a deal in that way. There will be opportunities there. And I think having a lot of different ways that you're prepared to take action in whatever ways that come up, but being ready to pounce on those is really important.
Very important, man. Look, I'm not a structured guy. I love, seat of my pants. I love chaos around me when it's going on because I focus better and I like it more. You know what I'm saying? That's my thing. That's not the way to do it when you're preparing a basketball team and putting it together. Like my man said, they doesn't want that Sadeli Whiplash jazz. No, bro, I don't want Thelonious Monk. I don't want Miles Davis. I don't need the John Coltrane. You know what I'm saying? Legendary, all of that. Give me the structure. You know what I'm saying? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me the structure of this when you're running a basketball team like that, man. And they haven't earned that either, in my opinion, Will. I haven't seen them hit on that thing where it's been hey, this is out of the box thinking right here. How about this guy? All I've seen it do is crash and burn. You know what I'm saying? Or it hasn't reached its full potential of what it's supposed to be. So I can't have you do that again. You know what I mean? 3rd or 4th time is not a charm in this situation, man. You got to hit on one of these, man. So go ahead and hit on one of these, and I will be comfortable and cool with however you select it and however it went down. I just need it to make sense.
Yeah, and I think this draft is just so interesting because I feel like last year, basically 1 through 12 was kind of the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were 12 players that I could have seen going first or 12th.
Yeah.
This year, it's like you've got your first couple, and then there's kind of a tier that ends right before you.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So the Bulls are kind of sitting at the top end of that third tier, fourth tier of the draft, depending on whether you think Dylan Harper is in the same tier as, Ace or VJ or whatever.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if anybody falls, if they do anything to try to move up in the draft. If so, is it for a center because you really feel like you need to get fit there? Or is it for, another guard because you think he's the best talent available? Like whatever it may be. I just feel like they're in a position, and a lot of other teams are going to be in a position to take some swings in this draft. The salary cap is not something we've talked a lot about on this episode, but it's really squeezing teams to have to make decisions that they don't really want to make. I do not think the Celtics would be like trying to trade Drew Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis if they weren't really being crushed by the second apron. So like it is affecting them, it will also affect other teams, the Suns, the Rockets. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are going to be trying to wheel and deal. And I think the Bulls should try to get into those deals if they can. And if it makes sense for them to be able to extract value.
Makes sense to me, man. Makes sense. All right. Before we get out of here, Katie, was there a poll put up for the people to go ahead and vote on?
There was a poll today.
Okay.
It was actually really interesting to watch this one change. So the poll was, what is the worst type of dream to have? As I told the guys before the show, I had a work dream last night. The winner was work dream with 36% of the vote.
Work dream. Okay.
Second place was too good to be true.
Whoa.
Third place was monsters. Monsters was leading for like half the show. And then something happened and it dropped down to third. And then last place was flashback / deja vu.
Interesting. I would think too good to be true would be last because that's what you dream for, right?
Yeah.
It's stuff that ain't supposed to happen.
But then like you wake up and you're like, oh, dang it. Now you're sad,
I hear that, but damn. I want my dreams to be normal.
Yeah,
I mean, normal dreams.
If you can't have dreams, then
yeah, come on, y'all.
what you got?
Come on, man. I work sucks. I know. Yeah, shout out JC. All right, y'all. That's gonna do it for us. Make sure you're hitting the like button on the way out. We will see you all tomorrow for sure on production. Once again, that is Katie Duffy. Follow this man over here, Will_Gottlieb is where you can follow him at. His name is Will Gottlieb. I am Big Dave. You can follow me on Twitter at Sports. BAWL Sports. We'll see y'all tomorrow, man. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.